Welcome to our live broadcast here this morning. We are broadcasting to you live from Live Oak in Santa Cruz, and this is the Center for Spiritual Living, Santa Cruz. Boy, I've said Live Oak in Santa Cruz a lot this morning. How about that? Well, let me just take a breath and join you. I'm sure you're here with us, relaxed at home. Hopefully you've got your feet up, you've got a nice cup of coffee. So welcome. If this is your first time to our broadcast, a special welcome to you from wherever you're listening. Sit back and enjoy. We're so glad you're here. So we'd like to share this beautiful piece of music that India Ari just put together. It's called What If?
What if Martin didn't stand up? What if Rosa didn't sit down? What if Malcolm didn't man up? Where would we be now? What if Marley didn't get up, stand up? What if Du Bois didn't come to advance us? And Mandela didn't come to teach us? Where would we be now? We are the ones we've been waiting for. We can change the world. We can change the world with our love, 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 love. 'Cause it is up to us. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We can change the world. Our love can change the world. We can change the world with our love, 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 love. Our love can change the world. What if Maya didn't speak out? What if Langston Hughes didn't write it down? What if Josephine Baker didn't dance it out? No. Tell me, where would we be now? What if Sojourner never told the truth? Or Ida B. Wells never printed the news? Harriet never went underground? Where would we be now? We are the ones we've been waiting for. We can change the world. We can change the world with our love. Change the world. Our love can change the world. We can change the world with our love, 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 love. Our love can change the world. Me too, I matter, you matter, we matter. Together we are love. Me too, I matter, you matter, we matter. Together we are love. It's gotta be all of us to stand up and speak out with all of our love. Love, 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 love. 'Cause it is up to us. Change the world. Our love will change the world. We will change the world with our love, 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 love. Our love will change the world. Oprah, Kamala, Ava, Tirana, and Serena, Viola, Opal, Patrice, and Alicia. You and me are the chosen. Right now, this is our moment. We are a people of motion. Our love's gonna change the world.
That was India R.E. with a new piece. That was her own video that she and her crew put together. I hope you enjoyed that on the live broadcast. It won't be on the rebroadcast, but it was available on the live broadcast. If you're listening later, I encourage you to Google "What If" in India R.E. so that you can enjoy that. Okay. We are Centers for Spiritual Living. We're part of a global movement, and we share a vision, a mission, and purpose with Centers for Spiritual Living. And we have our own centering statement, and so I'd like to share that with you now. We are a spiritually progressive community that transforms lives and the world through a philosophy of possibility thinking and responding to life with love. We have a nice quote that is next. This
quote is by Bell Hooks. The absence of a sustained focus on love in progressive circles arises from a collective failure to acknowledge the needs of the spirit. Without love, our efforts to liberate ourselves and our world community from oppression and exploitation are doomed. As long as we refuse to address fully the place of love in struggles for liberation, we will not be able to create a culture of conversion where there is a mass turning away from an ethic of domination.
I see the beauty in you, I see the power in you, I see the greatness in you, and so it is. I see the child in you, I see the sweetness in you, I see the softness in you, and so it is. I can see it. It's right there before me, I can feel it deep in my soul. I just know it, that you are an angel full of magic and power and pure sweet love. I see the goodness in you, I see the wisdom in you, I see the strength in you, and so it is. I see the joy that's in you, I see your light shining through, I see the love that's in you, and so it is. I can see it, it's right there before me, I can feel it deep in my soul. I just know it, that you are an angel full of magic and power and pure sweet love. I see the grace that's in you, I see the courage in you, and I see the heart that's in you, and so it is. And I see the beauty in you, I see the power in you, I see the greatness in you, and so it is. I see the beauty in you, I see the beauty in you, I see the power in you, I see the power in you, and I see the greatness in you, I see the greatness in you, and I see the goodness in you now. I see the goodness in you, and I see the wisdom wisdom in you. I see the wisdom in you. Oh, I see your strength, your strength. I see the strength in you. And I see your joy, joy, joy. I see the joy in you. And I see your light shining, light. I see the light in you. And I feel the love that's in you. I see the love in you. And I see the grace that's in you. I see the grace in you. And I see the courage in you. I see the courage in you. And I see the heart in you. I see the heart in you. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Susan Springfield, for putting that video together. And thank you, Karen Drucker, for that beautiful piece of music. I want to thank all our artists. If you go to our webpage, you'll find many of the artists that have been supporting us through their music and and then, of course, Susan has been supporting the music through video. So welcome to our broadcast. My name is Rev Alice Reed, and I want to say Happy Father's Day to all those fathers out there. This is also Happy Solstice. This is the summer solstice as well, June 21st. And this weekend we also honored Pride Month in many localities, as well as Juneteenth. What is Juneteenth? June 19th is the day that the last state in our union honored the Emancipation Declaration, a full 2 years after it was enacted by Abraham Lincoln. And it was Texas who was the state that was last to actually enact the proclamation. And when Texas did that, all slaves everywhere were freed. And it's a time of reflection, it's a time of celebration for many of our Black Americans. Today's topic is words matter. Silence gives power to the unspoken. And I'm speaking about words because when we look at this month-long topic of being a mindful maverick, what we know is that it's our thoughts, it's our words, it's our deeds, it's the way we do our spiritual practice. And so today we're going to focus on words, but from a little bit of a different perspective. And you might be wondering, as all the activity in our country is happening right now, as all the things that are going on around racism are happening, you might be wondering, some of you, many of you get it, but some of us might still be wondering, why is this still an issue? Why is this still up for us after all this time? I mean, the Declaration of Emancipation was fully enacted 155 years ago. And you would think that we would be through this by now, but racism seems to be dying this very slow death in our country. Dr. David Camp, who is a Black New Thought educator, travels around the country sharing some teaching that he does on a White Allies Toolkit. And he does these training programs, and he was featured in our Science of Mind magazine in February, and he was quoted as saying that 55% of white Americans are still what he refers to as racial skeptics. They believe that racism is no longer a significant problem in America. Well, I have a quote from Ernest Holmes that I want to share with you. The collective unconscious contains a record of all human events that have ever transpired. We are all more or less subject to this collective thought, and I would add feelings and beliefs and values, words and actions. Holmes goes on to say, the sum total of all erroneous human belief binds until the individual mentally lifts himself above the law of averages into the higher law of spiritual individualism. That's in our Science of Mind textbook. So when we look at this idea that racial skepticism is still at 55%, well, I'd say we're pretty close to the tipping point. We're pretty close to that place that Holmes is talking about, where we rise above the law of averages and we can begin to really heal racism at a deep level in our country. Lifting ourselves above the law of averages, we create this movement of mind that Martin Luther King referred to as the arc of justice. If you recall, it was Martin Luther King who said, "Let us realize the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." There's great power in our words if we choose to use them. We're taught in this philosophy over and over again that our words are what create, that our thoughts are things, that we move from consciousness into form, into action, into our experience. But Holmes is pretty clear that the sum total of all erroneous human belief binds us. It binds us to error. It binds us to this belief in racism. Now, I don't believe that anybody listening to me today harbors hatred towards Black Americans. Not one of us. But I dare say that some of us might be complicit to this hatred. Complicit through our silence. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a movie or I've captured some piece of our history that was whitewashed and wasn't told to me as a white American, and I've wept and I've cried and it's broken my heart open. But then I really didn't do anything. There wasn't anything that I knew. I didn't know what to do when I hear about these atrocities that have taken place in our country over the last 250 years. I read recently that over a 400 period where slavery was still present in our country, worldwide, not just in our country, that over 12 million people were kidnapped, tortured, and terrorized to be slaves. That's an astounding figure. And I'm sure it gives you pause. And yet, what are we to do? And if you're like me, you probably didn't know what to do. After all, we're all good people, right? Isn't being a good person enough? I feel compelled to tell you a story of my youth and white privilege and the healing that has happened for me and is continuing to happen for me in my own story. When I was growing up, my mother was very adamant about making sure that we knew that there was injustice in our country. She had grown up with a best friend who, one day when they went to get a soda at the fountain, her best friend was told to leave the drugstore, and she didn't understand why. And that was her first introduction to racism in our country. I can remember in the early 70s when we were at a party, and there was a couple there. She was white and he was Black. And there were people who were really upset. They were very upset about this couple, and I didn't quite understand why. And my mother made a point of telling me that who these people were, there was nothing wrong with them, that the air lied in the other people at the party who were upset because these two people loved each other, and that it wasn't about their skin color, it was about the other people's bias. It was around that time that my mother informed us that we would be having a guest staying with us. And that is when Renee came into our lives, and we were part of a program called the Fresh Air Fund that brought inner city youth out into the suburbs. And when I was introduced to Renee, I could tell right away that she was very different from my family and my friends. I was about 11, and I had very little exposure to people of color at that time. I remember being awed by Renee. She was bright and brave and courageous, and I was a little intimidated by her. I was even a little jealous of her because she seemed to make friends very easily with my friends. She stayed with us for about 2 weeks, and we were getting ready to go on vacation. And she wanted to come with us. So we made the arrangements and got permission, and we were living in New York at the time in a suburb called Glen Cove, and we were traveling to Baltimore to visit my father's family. And so we brought Renee with us. We were only there a couple of days when tragedy struck. Renee drowned. There was an accident. It was horrific. Our family was absolutely grief-stricken and shocked. And I remember coming home immediately, and there was, the details are kind of sketchy. It was all so blurry and difficult. I remember my mother going to the funeral. I remember me not being allowed to go. I remember her saying how beautiful Renee looked in her white dress. But I want to say that after that incident happened, we never spoke of Renee again. Her name was never mentioned by anyone in our family after that time. There were no pictures of her in our family album. There were, if you were to ask me even 10 years ago about my childhood, that story would not have come to mind. And it's only been in the last 10 years that I've been able to bring up the trauma of that experience and to begin to speak Renee's name, to begin to reintroduce that horrible pain that was our family into my life again so that it could heal. And when I tell you this story, not to bring you along with my own trauma, but I tell you that story because it feels like it tracks with this idea of our national trauma. We, at one time in this country, we kidnapped and terrorized Black individuals so that they could do our labor, so that they could grow our crops, so that they could produce our textiles. And then when we had the presence of mind to free slaves in this country, to enact that proclamation of emancipation, it's almost as if we never wanted to speak of it again. And yet it lived underneath the surface in our country. And when I think about illness of any kind, and yes, I'm likening racism to illness. When I think of illness of any kind, if you don't treat it, the symptoms get louder. And so over the last 3 weeks, as we've seen people rising up to speak no to hatred and to speak no to racism, well, those are the individuals who are enough is enough. We are speaking truth to lies. We're speaking truth to this disease that has been under the surface in our country for way too long. There have been other atrocities on our planet. There have been other terrible things that humanity has done to humanity. But I really believe that in order for us to truly heal from them, that it isn't our silence that heals, but it is the power of our words. And so my invitation today is for us to begin to use our words, to begin to speak out, not to shame people, because if, in my example with my own family's experience with white privilege, we had great shame already about that experience. It was a horrible accident, and we couldn't speak to it. Shaming us would not have healed it. But speaking to it, acknowledging the pain, taking it in so that one can heal from it, that's where we unleash that power to reveal love. And what I know about racism in our country is that the more we try to push it away and deny it, the more we hold ourselves back from what's on the other side of that. Because what's on the other side of healing racism in this country is a great love, is an open-hearted love where we can embrace each other fully. So instead of having this thing that we will not speak about, some of us can't even say the word racism. And it stands between us. It continues to separate us. I know that the fabric of our nation is good, that it was built on high and beautiful ideals. But there's still some part of us that hasn't acknowledged it. There's still some 55% of us still think that racism is not a problem in our country. I tell you my personal story as a way of freeing my family from a past that was incredibly painful. But it no longer has to live in the shadows. I've spoken it out loud, and I speak Renee's name. Every adult that was involved in that experience has passed. I don't even know Renee's last name. I know programs like the Fresh Air Fund and my mother, wanting to bring Renee out into the country, they mean well. But there's an underlying statement behind them. An underlying statement that if you can come out and be like us and live like us, then you'll be good enough. That's the underbelly of racism, where we have good intentions. But until I embrace, and I'll just talk about myself, until I embrace my Black sisters and brothers fully for who they are, for their culture, for the beauty that they bring into the world, until I embrace them fully, I still keep myself separate. And so our invitation this morning is to really look at how we can cross that divide, how we can open ourselves. And it is painful. It's painful to know that my ancestors were part of something as horrible as slavery. But we can't keep silent. We can't continue to propagate, pretend. Our history books are not accurate. They don't tell the story of our Black American citizens. And so it's up to us as white Americans to lean in, to find out, to get educated, to learn what it was like, to hold that pain so that we can truly love one another and we can erase the divide of separateness. Our philosophy works at the level of the individual. And as each individual reveals and heals whatever is ours to reveal and heal, it adds to that collective mind, that collective consciousness, and we raise up and we move into that tipping point so that we can begin to own our white supremacy, that we can begin to own our part in racism. Racism is not a Black problem. Racism is a white problem. In the August, we have an invitation to do a beautiful book study on me and white supremacy. It's offered by Centers for Spiritual Living, our global movement. There'll be ways that you can press in. I know that there's other action that we can take. I know that we can figure this out together. I know that this is worth our time. I know it's worth feeling the feelings. I know it's worth not being silent and using our words for power. I leave you with this statement from our spiritual leader, Edward Valune, and this will be our closing prayer. And after the prayer, we have a beautiful piece of music by Eddie Watkins. Edward writes, Centers for Spiritual Living stands with people all around the world who are advocating for justice, equity, inclusion, and peace. We are motivated by our vision of a world that works for everyone, and therefore we affirm with the people of the world that Black lives matter. Not only do Black lives matter, but according to our teaching, they are sacred. We have experienced a great movement in our country. There is a momentum of support from individuals along with spiritual and secular organizations as more than a fleeting moment, but rather the heralding of lasting change. We have confidence that a new era of willingness to engage in the inner work that leads to the end of racism in our world has begun. We have confidence that the unifying cry of our global heart, that Black Lives Matter, has struck a note of urgency in all who we hear it. And above all, we have confidence that the living Spirit Almighty is working through us to bring our stated belief in oneness into form in the social, political, judicial, spiritual, and economic realms, and importantly, in our hearts. The recent tragic loss of Black lives in the United States and other countries due to police violence and the myriad of inequities that have resurfaced have revealed that our world is still catching up to the vision of a world that works for everyone. We have been called to be the brave enough to examine how society can be out of step with its values and how we as individuals can be out of step with our spiritual values. One of the values of Centers for Spiritual Living is love and self-givingness, of the divine to all of its creation, expressing through us as compassion, caring, mutual respect, and kindness. Our organization's purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence. What can be more spiritually magnificent than to say a full-hearted yes to this upwelling of affirmation of the sacredness of Black lives? We invite you to stand with Centers for Spiritual Living and the people of the world by affirming with us that Black lives matter, so that we may demonstrate the values of our teaching and embrace the emerging universal consciousness of oneness. And he ends his statement with this quote from Ernest Holmes. Let us therefore light the candle of love, human kindness, forgiveness, and understanding in our soul, and let it shine brightly. Let us not peer into the darkness troubled and concerned because it is so foreboding and or unknown. Rather, let us remain steadfast in our radiance, that the spiritual light of truth within ourselves. Let us stand guard so that the winds of malice, cross purposes, ignorance, or misunderstanding will not blow out the light. Let us live each day that the light from our candle of spiritual knowledge will forever be clear and understood, not only by ourselves, but by all with whom we have come in contact. And so it is.
Am I strong enough to bear the burdens that sometimes come living this thing called life? Am I wise enough to make the right decisions when I'm standing at the fork in the road? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone, and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Will I have enough to do the things I need to do to take care of myself. Will I have the health of mind and body to live a life of grace and wholeness? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone, and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place.
I am the place where God
You
lives,
are the place.
moves and breathes and has
We
its
are the
being.
place
I am the place
where God shows up. I am the place.
I am the place where God
You are the
moves and
place.
breathes and has
We
its
are the
being.
place
I am the place
where God shows up. I want you to clap your hands and sing it with me. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up.
Eddie Watkins, Husk, can I have some more of that? Can we have some more of that? A little more? A little more.
I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up.
Eddie Watkins! Good job, brother. Outstanding. Eddie Watkins, Jr.
I am the place where God shows up. I wish I had chosen that for our affirmation today. Well, how about if we have two? Our first affirmation will be, I am the place where God shows up. And our second affirmation is there on the screen, and if you'll say it with me, today I speak power to truth and love is revealed. We have a couple of announcements for you. But first, I want to thank everybody for donating to our center. We really appreciate your financial gifts, your tithes, your offerings. We receive them in the mail. We receive them through Giverly. We receive them through Givelify, through PayPal, and we're so grateful for all your support. I'm also grateful for all the people who are involved with our broadcast. I want to thank Nancy Laskagian. I want to thank Mohini Peters. I also want to thank Debbie Bratby, who's been keeping us safe while we are managing our COVID protocols. I want to thank Susan Pankratz for all her help. There's so many people who are beginning to get more involved as we slowly move ourselves back into the center. Thank you all for your support in every way for us to continue to bring this beautiful message of power and truth out into the public. I do have a couple of announcements for you, and I want to share them with you. The first one is the book study that I mentioned in my talk. So if we can change the slide, please. And that is the Me and White Supremacy. This is being sponsored by Centers for Spiritual Living, our global movement. You can register by going to our website, or there's also a link in our e-news. This is a powerful opportunity for us to move through this important information together. It is for white and white identified CSL members. So if you fall into that category, please join us for this powerful book study. I want to also let you know that that book is currently back-ordered in many locations, and so hopefully you can try to get the book early. You'll need to, and if you have a Kindle, it's available at a download. So that's the first announcement I want to give you. The other announcement is about coffee and conversation. Every Thursday, I now take on the Project to Connect Zoom call, where you can join us and we'll give you updates on what's going on in the center, as well as talk about whatever's up for you. What are the current issues that are facing you as we press into some of our social issues and try to apply our philosophy to them. This is an excellent opportunity for us to have conversation about that. So that's 1 o'clock on Thursdays every week. We have another book study that happening right now. We've talked about the book study. We've talked about the Project to Connect. Wednesday nights, we're doing a beautiful spiritual practice gathering on this same YouTube live channel. Happens Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. It's a half an hour of meditation music, and it's really a time to dive deep into our spiritual practices. And then finally, if you'll join us after the service on Zoom, it's an opportunity for us to be in fellowship. And we can also talk about what came up for you during the talk this morning, any of the music that you heard, whatever happened during our broadcast this morning. It's an opportunity for us to also see each other. So the Zoom number is right in front of you. It's 178-032-656. And the passcode is, when you get in, it'll ask you for a password, and it's 1818. That'll be about 5 or 10 minutes after the broadcast, so please join us in our fellowship room. Well, I think that's it for today. Any of this information is available on our website, cslsantacruz.org. Please keep an eye on our e-news that comes out twice a week. Join us on Wednesday. Join us for the Project to Connect. Join us here next Sunday when I'll be speaking to you again live on our broadcast. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.